I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the February 8th, 2023 meeting of the Capital Improvements Advisory Commission or Committee. For those in the audience that may not have been to one of these before, we actually have two meetings tonight. The first one is on capital improvements, and then as we finish that one, we'll move on to the planning and zoning. Item number 2 for seating of alternates, not required. Hearing of residents. Did anybody sign up to talk about the capital improvements report? No? Okay. All right, item number 4 is a public hearing. Hold a public hearing, consider and file the semi-annual report evaluating the progress of the city on achieving the capital improvements program and identifying any problems in implementing the plans or administering the capital recovery fees. I guess that's you.
Wow, this is a little intimidating. Good evening, committee members. Kathy Woodley, city engineer. I'm here to talk about the capital improvement, capital recovery plan and the progress that we've made in the last not the last 6 months. We're actually way behind in bringing this to you. This is for the period from April through September of last year. So we're actually almost through the first half of this next fiscal year. So we'll see you in just a couple more months. But catching up, and I was hoping that James would be here because I can speak to the projects. His accounting sometimes gets me a little flustered. So we'll muddle through that together. But you can see the projects that we've been working on, we actually have been spending money for many, many years. It seems like we were just collecting money and not really able to use it for anything, and now we're using it at a pretty quick rate. So I did want to demonstrate for everyone, in case you haven't or aren't aware of it or haven't seen it, we've got an update to our capital improvement page. So when you go to business and development, under engineering, there's a capital improvements projects page. If you go to this, you can start scrolling down, and then you have the option to just continue scrolling, or you can click on street and sidewalk, water, wastewater, drainage projects, completed projects, and then a couple different ways you can navigate through this. You can scroll and it'll just run through all the projects. Or you can click on there and go just to the water wastewater projects. So the first one you see there is the Woman Hollering Creek project, and then the map is in the back. You can zoom in or out on the map, and you'll see the project highlighted. So something else that's kind of handy, if you zoom way out, so go out further, you kind of see there are some other projects that you could click on. So when you click on those projects, it'll take you to or give you information about those projects. So in any case, this is the page is the Woman Hollering project. It gives you the update. It gives you a status update. We try and update it at least monthly as to exactly what's going on with the project. It's basically the same information that we provide to council monthly for each one of these projects. And you'll see there are quite a few projects on there that are not on the list of projects that we talk to you about, because this is only projects that are funded with capital recovery fee money. So we also have other funding sources, the water, wastewater revenue accounts. Sometimes there are bond projects, and so on and so forth. So the IH-35 transmission main is another project we're working on, not capital recovery fee funded. Riata lift station, that one will be reimbursed by TxDOT. Corbett ground storage tank, that's the big water project that you see on the report that we're starting to spend money on. That one I'll give you a little bit more information on. We applied for and were awarded a grant for $3.5 million to help pay for that $7 million project. When the grant was done, this was in the middle of COVID, and the government, of course, wanted to provide funding, but they didn't have the time to get all the red tape and all the details of how this funding would be dispersed, worked out. So they said, yep, you can have this much, you can have this much, you can have this much. But in order for us to get it, what are we going to have to do? What rules do we have to follow? What do we have to submit? Well, we don't know yet. So we have marched forward with the project. We bid the project. We have a signed contract with Passato Construction. But we still have not been able to jump through all the hoops for this grant. So it's slowing us down a little bit, but hopefully we can move forward. But we do have, I believe, 3.349 million dollars allocated to this project from the capital recovery funds. Let's see. You'll see in both water and sewer that we're still working on the water and wastewater master plan and impact fee study. That's one that's just dragging out a very long time, but hopefully within the next 6 months or so, we'll be coming back to you guys to go through the capital improvement, the updated capital improvement plan that'll identify future projects, and then an update of the impact fee maximum amount. We need to look at that based on the costs of implementing the updated capital improvement plan. Another water project that has started, but we did not have any expenses in this period that we're reporting about, are Ware Seguin and Lower Seguin loop lines. And so that's another project that you can find on the website. Keep going. There we go. So if you zoom out a little bit, you can see there's a blue line that runs from Ware Seguin to Lower Seguin. And there's another one, if you go south a little bit, sorry, that's actually a road project, so other direction. You need to see to the west. It's a long 10. There we go. See the other blue down there is running from Greytown to File, and that's to connect some mains in the south so that if we get a main break, there's a redundancy and feeds can come from either direction. So that's a project that will be funded from the capital recovery accounts, but we haven't had any expenses under the period this report is for yet. Then let's see, Womanhollering Creek, it is blowing and going. It is behind schedule, generally because of supply chain issues. We're still dealing with those, particularly electrical, but we're probably about 45% complete with the gravity portion of the project, and the lift station and the wet well are going into the ground. 16-foot diameter, approximately 40 feet deep. So those are some pretty big structures that are under construction now. So during this reporting period, we had $3.9 million worth of expenses that we paid for. That was some design, construction, and some professional services, testing, and QA, QC, and construction management by our consultant who's helping with that. And then again on the sewer, the water, wastewater master plan and impact fee study, it covers both water and sewer. As far as roadway goes, at this point, the only expenditures, I think there's just a small amount of expenditures split among all the service areas for the update that we did because we annexed some property. And we had to update the plan because of that. Other than that, we have not incurred expenses. We don't have any current projects that we're working on to use these funds, but you can see what the balance is in the account since we've been collecting fees. And we do have projects identified in each of the 4 service areas. So we're kind of queued up to leverage dollars if we can get some partners in some of these projects. They happen to be in Area 1, an expansion and reconstruction of Old Wiederstein. Also the extension of Wiederstein, the sort of to fill in the gap between Cibolo Valley Drive and 3009. In Service Area 2, the extension of Live Oak from Schertz Parkway to Maskey Road is the project that we've identified there as probably the best bang for our buck when we have enough funding available. In Service Area 3, we're actually working on some agreements to partner with the Crossvine. They have some required improvements they need to make to Lower Seguin Road, and so we're going to couple our funding with that to be able to make a little more meaningful improvement between 1518 and the Sedona portion of the Crossvine. The fourth, in Service Area 4, Graytown Road, the Graytown subdivision is going to be making some improvements also, and we're going to hopefully be able to use, although we don't have a lot of funding there yet, but the plan is when we do have funding to, again, make a more meaningful improvement than just what they're required to make. So that's a kind of rundown of where we stand with our impact fee or capital recovery projects. And I will take any questions.
All right, thank you, Kathy. First, though, this is on the agenda for a public hearing. So it is 6:11, and I'll open that public hearing. Anyone in the audience wish to address the committee on this report? Yeah, there's always a mad rush. Yeah. Nobody? All right. We'll close that hearing still at 6:11 p.m. Okay, commissioners, Mr. Jones, any questions for Kathy or comments?
I have no questions.
Anybody? No? I can never remember, do we take any formal action on the report, or do we, in other words, should I ask for a motion to recommend approval to city council? Yes, okay. Someone like to make that motion?
And I will make a comment.
Okay.
Sorry, a little slow
That's all
here.
right, go ahead.
I'll just say it's nice to see that the roadway impact fee is collecting some funds in there, that we might in the future be able to do some nice road projects. We haven't been doing this for very long, but there's a good bit of money in there, so that's good to see. And also, I think the fund's gonna start when we get the capital improvements plan and we start playing with that. So
Yes, it will.
we can keep forging on with what we have right now and wait for the fund to start later on this year, hopefully.
Anyone else? Can I have a motion to approve this report and send it on to city council?
I'll make a motion to approve the report.
I'll second.
Yeah, where'd the second come from? I'm sorry. Mr. Jones, okay. All right, I have a motion to recommend, or I don't know if we recommend or approve or whatever, anyway, but to go ahead and forward this report on to city council. Any further discussion? Call for the vote.
You're first.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, that's 8 in favor, none opposed, that motion passes. All right, that's all the business for the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee, so this meeting will adjourn at 6:14. Mr. Jones, thank you very much. We'll take just a moment here and All right, it is 6:14, and I will call this meeting to order, and this is the regular meeting, February 8th, 2023, of the Schertz Planning and Zoning Commission. Item number 2 is seat alternates, and that's not required. Item number 3 is hearing of residents. This time is set aside for any person who wishes to address the Planning and Zoning Commission. Each person should fill out the speaker's register prior to the meeting. Presentation should be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Discussion by commission of any item not on the agenda shall be limited to statements of specific factual information given in response to any inquiry, a recitation of existing policy in response to an inquiry, and/or a proposal to place the item on a future agenda. The presiding officer during the hearing of residents portion of the agenda will call on those persons who have signed up to speak in the order they have registered. And then let me ask real quick, did we have anybody email anything or, nope, okay. All right, so I have 2 people on the list. Item 5A is on the agenda for a public hearing, so it's not required to sign up to speak at that public hearing. Those of you that wish to speak that signed up have the option, you can speak now, and then if you so choose, again at the public hearing, or you can wait and address the commission at public hearing. It's your choice. Janice Hughes, there, okay. All right, so please, if you would, when you get up here, your name and address for the record.
Janice Hughes, 170 Clear Oak, Universal City. Okay, you may wonder what this woman is doing. That was Beethoven's Pastoral Symphony. And I think that I'm one of the landowners over in the proposed area close to that. I have one of the plats on File Road. And I think when we bought the property, we were thinking of it as country. We weren't thinking of it as busy. We weren't thinking of it as subdivisions. And I think that's my problem with adding to that area. I understand, or I'm guessing, I'm not an expert in this in any way, but I'm guessing that Schertz would benefit financially through taxation and through lots of stuff if this were to happen. But as one of the residents who's had property there for a long time, I hope this doesn't happen, because I said when we bought there because it was away from all these things. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Edward Chevalier? Well, my dad served in World War II on DD 451, the USS Chevalier, so I know how to say the word. Yes. Anyway, go ahead, sir.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Edward Chevalier. I live at 12505 Oak Clousley in the Schertz Force. This proposed change actually comes up to the back corner of my property, and it will have a direct effect on myself and my family. I have several concerns. I have talked to the city manager, I believe, and she mentioned to me that this was going to be both a closed and open warehousing area, which would have an increase in trucking type traffic. My concerns on this are that warehousing areas tend to have a lot of security lighting, so it would change the entire lightscape in the area of our neighborhood. It will have a lot more noise, especially if you have external storage, and that would change the sound dynamic in our neighborhood very significantly. And if there's a lot of trucking, then you're talking about not just noise of the trucks, but also a lot of an increased pollution, which is a health issue in our neighborhood. Especially for my family, I have 3 asthmatics, 1 severe, in my house, and it would have a direct effect on my property and on my family. I have been told that there would be a 10-foot wall or something of that would go around it. The 10-foot wall will not stop the pollution. It will not stop the light. It will not even really stop the significant increase in noise. All these things are of great concern, and I for the health of my family, the health of our neighborhood, and the health of the people around us, and I encourage you all to not do this. I knew this was a general business zoning before we moved in, and it's a very different type of zoning than what is being proposed tonight. So I'll cut it short here and just please take these into consideration in your vote, that this is going to have a serious negative impact on my family directly, but also on our neighborhood and any other neighborhoods in the area. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Excuse me. Moving on to item number 4 is our consent agenda. We have 2 items on the agenda this evening. Item 4A are the minutes from the January 25th, 2023 regular meeting. Item 4B is PLFP 2023-0014. Consider and act upon a request for approval of a final plat of the Schertz I-35 warehouse subdivision, an approximately 6-acre tract of land located 1,900 feet west of the intersection of FM 2252 and Interstate 35, City of Schertz, Canal County, Texas. Commissioners, do either of these items need to be pulled for discussion? If not, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as it is presented.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Broad. Do I have a second?
A second.
That was Ms. Brown. All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. There is no discussion on these items, therefore I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. 7 ayes, none opposed. That motion passes. Item number 5 is a public hearing. The Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing relating to zone change requests and replats within this agenda. The public hearing will be open to receive a report from staff, the applicant, the adjoining property owners affected by the applicant's request, and any other interested persons. Upon completion, the public hearing will be closed. The commission will discuss and consider the application and may request additional information from staff or the applicant if required. After deliberation, the commission is asked to consider and act upon the following requests and make a recommendation to the city council if necessary. Item 5A, PLZC 2022-0204. Hold a public hearing, consider, and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 87 acres of land from General Business District and Single Family Residential / Agricultural District to General Business District 2, located approximately 4,000 feet west of the intersection of IH-10 Access Road and FM 1518, also known as Bear County Property Identification Number 619249, also known as 12625 IH-10 East, City of Schertz, Bear County, Texas. Emily?
Good evening, Commissioners. As you mentioned, this is for an 87-acre zone change at 12625 IH-10. Emily Delgado, Planning Manager. So the subject property here is outlined in green, so you can see 1518 to kind of the right of the screen, I-10. The property is immediately adjacent to I-10. Excuse me. On January 27th, 14 public hearing notices were sent to all property owners within 200 feet. And then just so we all are aware, that red line on that map does indicate that state law 200-foot buffer that we are required to notify of tonight's public hearing. Out of the 14 that were sent, we have received 2 responses opposed. So as you can see here, the property is split. So the back portion of the property is single-family residential agricultural, and then the front portion along 10 is general business currently. And then you can see that's pretty consistent with the properties around it. There is an existing property already that's zoned general business 2, and then the majority of the frontage is that general business, and then you can see kind of that yellowy gold color to the rear being that single-family residential agricultural. The comprehensive land use plan does identify the property as commercial campus, which is intended to accommodate that commercial office and flex office and light industrial. The proposed general business district 2 would allow for that desired office, office, the industrial, per the permitted use table. So I know the map is a little small here, but the dashed blue line that cuts the property in the rear is the accident potential zone 2 for JBSA Randolph. So the property is within that APZ2, and I bring that up because per the UDC, if a property is in one of the APZs, in order to request a zone change through the city, they have to first go and receive an affirmative response from JBSA Randolph. So the applicant did submit a letter from JBSA Installation Encroachment Management for Randolph that indicates they do not object to the proposed zone change request or the proposed development. So JBSA is in favor of the requested zoning. It does align with the lower intensity, lower density that JBSA is looking for in the APZs. It did indicate that it is limited to a maximum floor area ratio of 0.28. So again, that goes along with Randolph is really trying to find that low density in the APZs in case there is some kind of accident. So since JBC Randolph did provide that no objection letter, they were able to submit the application to us for the zone change. So the subject property currently has that 2 different zoning districts, as I mentioned, with the RA being in the back and the general business being along the front. The proposed zone change to general business 2 would provide conformity and have one zoning district on the property, which would help with the development process. And again, would be in line with that lower density for JBSA. The proposed general business 2 is compatible with the comp plan. As I mentioned, being designated as commercial campus, it would allow for the office, the light industrial, the flex office that's mentioned within that comp plan. So based on the compatibility with the comp plan, the existing businesses in the area, there is, I'll go back to the aerial. There is 2 existing businesses to the east of this property that are similar in nature to what would be permitted in general business 2. So if you've been in this area, the Metal Mart that's been there for ages, and then there's an additional business that does kind of trailer. So it wouldn't be inconsistent with businesses that are already existing in the area. And then with JBSA Randolph, providing that no objection, staff is recommending approval of the request to rezone the approximately 87 acres to the general business 2. And then there is a representative here of the project that would like to give a presentation as well.
Thank you, Emily. Yes, come on up and name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sorry. I do have a short presentation. Sorry, very loud. Sorry. Hi, good evening. I'm Ashley Fairman with Killing Griffin and Fairman, 10101 Reunion Place, San Antonio, Texas. Thank you all for having us here tonight. I'm here also with Jake Wilkinson, who's a representative of the potential developer here. So can I change it? Okay, sorry. So as Emily mentioned, the site right now has the GB1 zoning across the frontage. What we're asking for is the GB2 across the entirety of the site. I'm here tonight on behalf of W&B Service Company. They are a company right now that they specialize in transport refrigeration and the parts and service related to that. So I'll talk about that in a little bit in a second. But what we need is the GB2 to allow for them to build a new facility here. The code GB1, it's a little confusing. The GB1 allows for heavy equipment sales and service, but this would probably be considered truck sales and service, which is a GB2. So that's why we need to ask for that particular zoning district. And as Emily mentioned, I just want to point out we're consistent with the plan. So W&B Service Company, they, like I said, specialize in transport, refrigeration, and semi-trailer dealership. So that's everything from parts related to those trucks, it's the refrigeration units, and it's the service of those. So right now, W&B has a facility in Converse, and they have also a facility in New Braunfels. And they actually already own this property. They've owned it for a little while. And so what they'd like to do is build a brand new facility on this tract that would consolidate the 2 existing businesses that they already have. So this is just, it might be a little hard for you all to see, but this is an idea of a site plan. So they are not going to use the entirety of the site now. It's about 35 acres or so. That would be the WMB facility. And then, like I said, they already own the remainder of the property. So what they're looking for is other uses that kind of go along with what they do. So they can be selective in who those people are, who their neighbors are, who else is selling probably something related to trucks here, similar to the other businesses Emily mentioned are on I-10, and something that fits in with the WMB business. Here's just, if you can see that, that's another idea of how that would look if there were 2 additional businesses on this property as well. And I do want to mention, obviously, I think you all realize, but the only access to this property would be from the I-10 frontage road. So this is an existing WMB facility in Duncanville, so you can get a kind of an idea of what it would look like. Just a little bit more zoomed in, so you have employees parking out front, customers parking out front, and then the trucks in service in the building, and then to the rear of that. And that's just how this is a much smaller site, but you can kind of see how it lays out. And this one is actually much closer to residential than the proposed use here. So I know there's been questions or concerns about, what might happen in the back of this property. That is something that, as of now, there aren't plans for, but there's no intent for it to be residential, and that's why we're coming in and asking for it all to be zoned commercial. I'm happy to talk with the other property owners who are here this evening about setbacks and lighting and all of those sorts of things, and how we can be sensitive to those homes that are there in the back. But for the moment, there's no particular development plans that far to the rear of the property. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the project, the zoning, or the requested change. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, this item is on the agenda for a public hearing. So once again, I'll open the public hearing for citizen input. Please, if you do come forward, your name and address for the record, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. So it is 6:32, and I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wish to address? Certainly, come on, step right on it.
My name is Sharita Johnson, and I am at 12501 Will Cloudsley. So this project will be happening actually in my backyard.
Can you try pulling? No, don't, just pull it, just pull it, there you go.
I'm short.
That's all right.
I've always been short.
And what was your address again? I'm sorry.
12501.
01, all right, thank
Will
you.
Cloudsley. So these are my neighbors, so I actually have the exact same concerns as they do, as well as crime in that area. Our subdivision is Schertz Forest. We have a lot of retired military over there, seniors over there, and so we have a pretty nice neighborhood, a very safe neighborhood, and we take care of each other. So crime is an issue for us, and so we want to get an opportunity to also, talk about this a little bit more before it happens. Thank you for listening to me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for your input. Yes, ma'am, if you wouldn't mind, come on back up so we can all hear you.
I have a question, and
Well,
this is kind of like,
I need your name and
Oh,
address
sorry.
again, I'm sorry.
I haven't moved yet.
Okay.
Janice Hughes, 170 Clear Oak. I just wonder, in the future, for something of this import, I was saddened to hear that only 2 responses came in out of 14. Could those letters be sent certified to make sure they get to the people? I mean, we all know the post office sometimes
Yeah.
doesn't get things where they need to be, and something,
All
this is, I think, a big deal, and
Right.
it's only 14 people. But I think in the future, things like this should be sent certified to make sure the people involved get the
Okay.
notices.
I'll have staff address that question. One real question for you, since I've got the public.
I
the
obviously
public
got my
notice,
letter.
You got a notice?
I did. I got the
And-
letter
well-
and then I did return it by email to Emily. She was very
Right.
helpful.
I'm just wondering, which of these, you on file or?
I'm on file.
You could,
The third one up,
okay,
2 down from the cows.
2 down from the calendar. All right, thank you, Ms. Hughes, appreciate it. I'm just doing a little mapping of my own here, so. Anyone else?
Do I need to reintroduce myself?
Yes, please, sir.
Edward Chevalier, 12505 Old Cloudsley, Schertz Forest. It does come up to the corner of my property. All my earlier statements still stand true. I do want to mention that we only received this notice on Saturday. And so there may not have been sufficient time for other landowners and homeowners in the area to respond. So I second the better notice of change to notification on these. I have an even greater concern about potential of chemical and other types of spillage dealing with these. These could actually render some, depending on the prevailing wind is from the south, which means the winds will blow straight over our houses. And as I mentioned, that poses a great health risk, especially for those people who have compromised systems like my children and even my wife with asthma. So I just wanted to add that in there, that the idea that these refrigerants and other chemicals will be used in that area, I think increases the concern for our safety in those neighborhoods. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you, sir. Anyone else? All right, you didn't use all your 3 minutes, so usually it's one time, but you were pretty quick. There you go. Go ahead. Your name once again.
Sharita Johnson, 12501 Will Cloudsley. And I just wanted to add on the mail. So we only received our notice on Monday, so we didn't have much notice about it. So we do have our notice. We did mail it today, but the meeting was today also. So maybe a lot of people didn't get theirs in a timely manner. Just wanted to go on record with that.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. All right, going. Well, you're more than willing, you're more than entitled to speak if you want to. But I will need your name and your address, okay? All right.
My name is Adrienne Chevalier. I live at 12505 Will Cloudsley. My concerns are, like my husband said, I have asthma. We have a child that has severe asthma. She has trouble being outside sometimes. She can't even mow the lawn. So having something with this many chemicals close to our house is concerning for her and for her safety. We also have chickens. How is this going to impact my animals? My chickens are my babies. What is this going to do to them? The reason we bought the property, knowing that we were going to have residential behind us, knowing that we would live in a country-ish environment, and rezoning this property will change that. We might move. We might leave Schertz because of that, and we have lived here for 7 years. So we are really not happy with this. This affects our entire neighborhood. Even if we only got a little bit of property there, we're only the little few houses that this affects, it does impact our entire neighborhood. So, there you go. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome, thank you. Okay, anybody else? I think that's everybody, but I have to ask. No? Oh, let's see here. So it is 6:30, I gotta make sure I look at the right clock here. Yeah, 6:38. Public hearing is closed. Before I open it up to the commissioners, I'd like to make a comment or two. What's always difficult for us here as the Planning and Zoning Commission is we're not considering a project. I appreciate the details and the potential site plan, but that's not what's under consideration tonight. We are here strictly to recommend to City Council whether or not to apply or to approve a change in zoning. And I know a lot of times it's difficult to divorce those two issues, but and I think you'll hear in our questions and comments, even we have a problem. But that's what we're here tonight, not to approve or disapprove a project, but a zone change. Commissioners, who wants to start? Anybody? Well, go ahead.
I have a question. With the notices, I know you go out 200 feet, but are you also given a timeline in which to make the notices to the residents?
So, per state law, we have to have the notices sent 10 days prior to the public hearing, which usually falls on a Saturday. So we normally do that on the Friday before the 10 days. So they're usually sent about 11 days prior. I think this one may have had problems because of the little ice event, so that might have maybe stalled. But they are sent out, and the 200 foot is per state law. So we send out based on the 200 feet and based off of the date requirement.
Well, I asked that because today I received something back in the mail that was sent out in June of last year. And I also received about a month ago a Christmas gift I sent out in 2021. So there is an issue with the Postal Service. It was a closing gift to a buyer, and it came, I had to call them and said, oh, I just got your Christmas ornament from 2021. So it's kind of ridiculous. There should be more time or other means to get the notice out, and I don't know if that even has anything to do with this particular situation, but 11 days may not be enough time, especially if Miss Shanita, I can't remember if that's her name, but anyway, she didn't receive hers till Monday, and no chance to respond until yesterday, and so that's.
So I'll also say we do, on the same day that the mailers go out, we have the applicant come and post the public hearing notice signs on the property, so those have been posted since that date as well. It also gets posted on the city's webpage as a news flash, public hearing news flash as well. So we try to get the word out, the best we can, and then even though we haven't received that response yet, it will still be taken into consideration for the city council. So we try to get the responses before P&Z, that way the commission can have those responses as well, but we'll still collect them as they come in up through city council as well.
Another comment is I've seen some of the public notices that go out. Are they the little banner signs on the side of the road? Is that what you're referring to?
So
The little bandit, whatever, 2x2, small, down, low in the ground?
They're like 2x4 maybe. We have some in the office I can show you after the meeting, but so they provide the request. So it's a proposed zoning 2, general business 2. It provides today's date for the meeting, and then we have a QR code on there that takes them to the city's webpage. There's only so much you can put on.
Right, I've seen those in there. If you're driving past, you don't really know what that is so much, but I don't know if there's a better way, but that's just another concern.
Another consideration is if you go to certified, it's going to slow the letters down.
Okay, this is not meant to be a two-way. Sorry.
All right, I want to make a comment about something that was said earlier, so I just want to make sure everything is understood. Earlier, we talked about removing or changing the zoning. When we talk about changing the zoning, the only thing we're going to do perhaps here tonight is take this to GB2. We will not remove the ACOS.
That's correct. So it would just be changing the single-family residential agricultural RA and the general business to general business 2.
Someone left that out earlier, and I want to make sure.
The ACOS, the APZs do not change.
So really all that's being affected is changing it from one type of business to a second, or from G1 to G2 in single family.
Oscar, can I get my PowerPoint back up? So,
That's in,
truly what's being
That's
requested tonight,
M1.
right? The back portion of
And
the
even
property
M1.
you can see here in that golden yellow is a single-family residential agricultural, which only allows residential and agricultural uses. And then the lighter blue, the general business two along the frontage. The request is for that entire piece, the full 87 acres, to be the general business two, GB2 zoning district.
Anyone else?
Is there a strip or something in there on the master thoroughfare plan? Did I see that somewhere?
Yes, so there is a planned commercial collector A that does bisect the property. Let me see if I, on one of these, I thought. Might be on the aerial. Give me a second, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. So you see the dashed kind of teal blue line? I know that's kind of hard to see, but it is a planned commercial collector A, so it's a 70-foot right-of-way that goes through the property. Planned, it's not there today, obviously.
And so in our comprehensive land plan, do you have that up there in your slide?
So the future land use plan map does not have the master thoroughfare plan lines on it.
Okay, and we often talk about a buffer zone in that particular area. Do we have one? Is there one identified on that?
I may be not understanding your
Or a-
question,
or a-
Mr. Rowe. Sorry. What do you mean by buffer zone? Maybe I'll-
A transition zone? What do
No,
you
goes
guys
straight
call
from-
it?
It goes straight from commercial campus to the
Residential?
agricultural,
Okay.
no, estate neighborhood, right? Estate neighborhood. Yeah. Sorry.
I might have something, but I don't know.
Okay. Roderick, anything?
Yes, okay. So you said that Randolph did not object to the change or was in favor of? Those mean two different things to me.
So for Randolph, they're kind of, I don't want to say one and the same, Lisa, you might think kind of the same way, but when we get that response from JBSA Randolph, it's a does not object. So that is their way of saying we're okay with what's being proposed. They do not object to what's being proposed. And I have talked to Curtis Robertson about this project as well, about the zoning. I wanted to confirm the general business two, the height that's allowed in general business two. I talked to Curtis Robertson with JBSA. They have no concerns with the height that would be allowed in the general business two, the land uses that would be allowed. They did indicate that it is the lower density. With JBSA, they are concerned with, higher density, higher population in the APZs in case there is an incident. They want less people there.
Yeah, I would say my interpretation, and Emily did use the words approved, but I don't think Randolph, as she pointed out, either they object or they don't. Other than they're ambivalent about whether this particular development happens. So they're not out there stumping for it, but they're not objecting to it. In other words, it's an acceptable use to them, I guess, is maybe another way to put it.
And at what point does the city, investigate the chemicals and the toxicity of those products that businesses?
Well, if you can hold off just a second, I was going to ask the applicant if they'd like to address that chemical question. You don't have to, but you probably know more about it than we do. Again, if you don't feel comfortable, that's okay. Well. I'm his commercial real estate broker. Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if we could give you a sufficient
Okay.
answer on that, but I can say we're asking for the GB2 and not an industrial zoning, so that will really limit what can be done. And also, you know, in addition to that, if there were chemicals being used, that also requires a whole set of other approvals with TCEQ and different agencies. I don't think the city gets into that, other than saying that's a use that's too intense for this zoning district.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I think just offhand, I don't know what kind of refrigerant the reefer trailers use. I assume it's some kind of a, Freon isn't the right word, but you know, I don't think they use ammonia like the big plants do. I will tell you that the storage of anything other than, you know, the particular trailers, and where, you know, you've probably seen them in parking lots and on the road. It looks like just a big air conditioner hanging on the front of the trailer. I don't believe they have big tanks of refrigerant or anything. And where I started to go was the storage and use of hazardous materials on any particular site is as they pointed out, is further regulated. And you know, as the fire marshal, I used to inspect and permit installations that, you know, stored gasoline and motor oil, and we have one or two sites in the city that actually use ammonia as a refrigerant, and that's pretty closely regulated. You know, personally, again, I don't have any idea of what if one of these reefer rigs were to start, if their unit sprung a leak. I have no idea exactly what it is, how much there is, or how it disperses in the air. But maybe that's something, because all we're going to do this evening is recommend to City Council. City Council has the final say on this rezoning, so this will be on their agenda sometime in the future. And maybe that might be something, staff, maybe you can work with that and try to find an answer about that. Let's see, was there something else?
I did think of something.
Okay, go ahead.
Regards to APZ2 and Randolph, I don't think Randolph will ever approve anything. I just think their position is they won't object to something. And as far as the APZ2 goes, I think they would be more in favor of a non-residential purpose than a residential purpose. And looking long-term out years for Randolph, I would like Randolph to stay here. And part of my plan for doing that is to keep residential construction out of an APZ zone. The more APZ in there, the bigger the argument the government has for closing Randolph and packing up and moving away. And I've been in 3 BRACs before where they closed Kelly twice, and they moved a lot of stuff away from Lackland. And it's pretty cutthroat, and a lot of it doesn't make any sense. And the government can look to Randolph and the surrounding houses and homes and everything else we have, and they can very easily use that as an excuse to close Randolph. And I don't think any of us want to do that. But sympathizing with the landowners out there, you know, I wouldn't want a big truck conglomerate behind my house either, but there's going to be something back there. There's going to be something at your house. And like I tell a lot of other people that have similar circumstances that come up here all the time, and in 10 or 12 years, if you have a vacant lot behind your house, enjoy it while you can, because it ain't gonna stay that way. And the only thing we can do up here and with city council is we can't stop anything, especially on the I-35 and I-10 corridor. We're not gonna stop development. This is one of the fastest, excuse me, growing areas in the country, and it's not gonna stop. So we can't stop development, but we can try to guide it and control it. That's the best we can do. And that's all that we try to do up here. And we all live in Schertz like you do. We all own property in Schertz like you do. I have a commercial lot behind my house that's vacant. So I'm on pins and needles. Every time I see somebody out there with a little mechanical instrument or some kind of measuring tape, I'm nervous. But I accept that. That's just the way it is. So anyway, that's what I think Randolph, and in long-term protection of Randolph, they would prefer something back there that's not residential. And I think it was Ed, you said something about lights and noise and stuff. We have city codes for that, that govern light pollution, light filtration, sound. And we also have codes on odors and chemicals and stuff crossing property lines. So that may not be totally comforting to you, that if something does come across your property line, it's crossed the property line. But at least we have codes in the city that we can call somebody and say, go check that out, make them stop. So we do have protections out there. It's not the wild, wild west anymore, but that's my comments.
Okay, and then just to clarify one other question, I'm assuming we're talking about an 8-foot masonry wall separating it, not, so it's even shorter. It's not 10 feet, it would only be 8 feet. I kind of look at this rezoning request, and again, it's not so much the project. You know, we sit here trying to, it's planning and zoning, and part of the planning process is what do we want I-10 to look like as people drive through, although they're not driving through Schertz, they're looking at Schertz, but they're driving through San Antonio. What do we want that to look like? And, I've been with the city for a long time, and, some of the historical reasons that you see property on both 35 and 10 zone GB is because at the time, those folks on city council, there were certain things they did not want to see on the interstate frontage. Back then, one of the big ones was car sales. For some reason, they don't like car lots. So, but as I was going through and researching this topic, I found it very confusing that automobile sales, even in GB2, require a special use permit, whereas heavy truck sales are a permitted use. It seemed a little incongruent to me, but as I mentioned at the beginning of this discussion, we're talking about zoning, not a project. And some folks may find that an operation like, is it WB? It is not a bad look to have on interstate frontage. The problem is not the project, it's the zoning. Our unified development has what's called a permitted use table, and it looks like this. And each column is a particular type of zoning, and wherever you see a P, that's permitted in that zoning. And so the issue I have is if council were to change this to GB2, you're still not going to have an auto dealer because he has to get a special use permit. But as I go down through this list, there are things that I don't necessarily find objectionable, like commercial amusement outdoor, that are permitted in GB2 but not GB1. I go down through the list, a flea market, an outdoor flea market. And no offense to buses, but is that what we want to see on our I-10 frontage? And a little confusing because we have three. They're called recycling collection centers, recycling collection point, versus a recycling facility, which requires a special use permit. I'm not sure what a recycling collection center looks like, but that's one I marked as stable, commercial. Do we want a horse stable, or, is that what we want on I-10 frontage? So that's my dilemma. I may not necessarily have a problem with a trucking operation, but once we rezone the property, that takes the lid off it. And any of those things that have a P in that column could be put on it, and they don't have to come back and ask us again. Okay? Once we change the zoning, anything with a P can be built, and they don't have to ask again. So that's my problem with this. And I don't know if there's a way around it or not. But I'm reluctant to open the zoning up to things that I don't think are appropriate for that particular location. Commissioners, anybody else have anything?
I have a question for the applicant. Can you address the size of the property or the building that you're going to currently build, or the site plan?
Do you know the square footage of the proposed building?
35.
It's about 30 to 35 acres total. The building, that's not my, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I should know, but I don't know
It's okay.
the square footage, the proposed square footage. It will probably be larger than the example I showed you because it is consolidating two businesses into
Okay.
one,
Okay.
or two existing facilities into one. So about 40-ish employees, a little bit more than that, and then over the next 5 years, they'd like to grow that by about 20 employees.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
And if I may, on the GB2 zoning, I understand the concerns with the other potential uses. W&B really likes this location. They want to be in Schertz. And if they can't do GB2 on I-10 frontage where the trucks are, I mean, that's where the trucks are. I mean, there's really nowhere else they can go. So, I get the dilemma, but we do feel like this is the best location for that use.
Anyone else? Well, one potential solution pops into my head, and that's PDD. Yes, no, maybe?
I mean, theoretically, yes, they could request a PDD with the base zoning of general business, two with specific land uses allowed or not allowed, or a base zoning of general business with the specific land uses out of GB2 that they need for the development. But ultimately, that's not what the applicant has requested. They requested the GB2, so.
No, I understand that, Emily. I'm just looking for, because it's great that the company wants to be in Schertz, and I think we'd like to see them in Schertz. And I don't know about, can council approve zoning with restrictions, or are there other ways to address my concerns about what we don't want out there?
Going the PDD would be the only thing that I could think
Okay.
of.
All right, but that's down the road. Okay, thank you, Emily. Commissioners, anybody else have anything?
Question. Do we know how far this potential facility would be from the back of the property line that backs up to the residential?
So I'll let Ashley kind of jump in, but I would just caution you, keep in mind, as Mr. Outlaw has said, we're not here about their specific development. We haven't seen that conceptual site plan. We haven't done any of that. So you have to keep in
Okay.
mind, theoretically, it could be 20 feet from the property line for that
Okay.
buffer.
Fair enough. Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, this is, our task this evening is to make a recommendation to City Council to either approve or deny this zoning request. And I would accept a motion either to approve or deny.
Can it be approved with restrictions?
I don't think that's an option here. Sometimes it is, but I don't believe it is tonight. Once again, you know, most if not all the council members will watch the video from tonight's meeting. So they will hear the citizens' comments, they'll hear the presentation by the developer, and they'll hear our discussion. So they'll get a feel, again, it just, however, whatever our recommendation to them is, they'll be able to see how we came, why we did what we did, one way or the other. So, and then if they see it appropriate, you know, they can, maybe they have the third option of, but legally, I don't know if they can do that either. I know we can sometimes do it on certain things, but I don't know if a zoning request, we can do that. That might be something to put on your list to ask Dan, just so we know in the future. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move that we recommend to City Council to approve PLZ C 2022-0204.
All right, I have a motion to recommend approval from Commissioner Broad. I have a second?
I'll second.
And that was down at the end, Commissioner Ray. All right, so once again, this is a recommendation to City Council that they approve PLZC 2022-0204. Any further discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Nay. Okay, so I'm gonna have to ask again because I've missed a count here somewhere. So if you wouldn't mind one more time, Commissioner Broad was aye. And Commissioner Hector was a nay.
Correct.
Commissioner Ray? Commissioner, okay,
Aye.
And I had an aye. So there were two nays.
so there's, okay, I'm just trying, I gotta keep the math straight. So that's 5 in favor and 2 opposed. Correct?
Correct.
All right. Okay, one more time. So this is a recommendation to City Council. It will be on their agenda sometime in the future. Emily, do you have a date?
Sometime in March.
Okay, so, and unfortunately, the notices are not sent again.
Correct.
So you just have to kind of watch. The agenda is posted every Friday, and you can check the city website, Schertz.com. It's, if you click on government up at the top, one of the first things that comes up is agendas. So, and that gives you, you know, if you want to spread the word to your neighbors and invite them along, okay? All right, I thank you all for your input and for your attendance. Okay, item number 6 is, 6A is request by commissioners to place items on a future planning and zoning agenda. Anyone have anything? Ms. Brown, you mentioned something earlier, and I've forgotten what it was, that had the potential to be an agenda, but I, for the life of me, don't remember what it was. I'll have to go back now. I'll have to go back and watch the video, okay? Nothing? Okay, how about announcements? Anybody have anything that they'd like to say? Anywhere anything you know? Okay, 6C is announcements by, you're more than welcome. Okay, announcements, anything from city staff? No. Okay. All right, item 7 is information available in the P and Z Commission packets. You'll find in there the status of things we have sent forward and where they stand at City Council. And item 8 is there's no further business. This meeting is adjourned at 7:10.